everyone, and welcome to Inside the Chrysalis with your host, Latesha Higgs. You see it? Yeah, I see y'all see my little background information back here, but it's okay. You see the t-shirt? Yes, Inside the Chrysalis. So Inside the Chrysalis is a platform for those that are managing a mental health condition or their loved ones. And the purpose is for us to erase the stigma associated with mental health. What we're trying to do is share our stories of triumph and overcoming the challenges that we face to show that we are living, surviving, and thriving, even in the midst of dealing or managing a mental health condition. So, welcome to today's episode. I am so excited because our guest today is like, excuse me, I'm already getting choked up. Our guest today is my bonus mom. I call her my bonus mom. She's like a second mom to me. We actually met at doing a presentation together for NAMI. And so we're both in our own voice NAMI presenters. And we volunteer for NAMI in other arenas as well. NAMI stands for National Alliance on Mental Illness. That is the organization that I'm always referring you guys to if you want to know more information about mental health and support groups and things like that. But we met there and we just connected, and she has been a major influence in my life, and I love her dearly. She's also an author of a book that is called Define the Verdict, My Bipolar Life. I love this book. And let me tell you guys, this book, I think it was the foreword was written by Kay Jemison.
The blurb.
The blurb, okay. Kay Jemison wrote the blurb, and let me tell you, if you guys don't know, Kay Jemison is like, she also wrote a book. She's a doctor, and she also wrote a book about bipolar, and she is like the head honcho, the go-to, the person in authority of bipolar, the bipolar disorder. So you guys definitely have to check out this book. So I am honored to be able to introduce you guys to one of my favorite people in the whole world, Miss Charita Brown.
Hello, my beauty. And hello, Inside the Chrysalis audience. It really is a blessing to be here with Latesha. She amazes me because of the life that she is able to live. There's a scripture that says, "The life that I now live in the flesh, I live by the faith of the Son of God who loved me and gave himself for me." And that's the way I live, and that's the way she lives. And so it's a thrill to be here.
Thank you. Thank you. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. So let's begin. Let's just tell everybody a little bit about yourself. I know I gave a little quick rundown, but give us a little bit more about yourself.
Okay, I am Charita Cole Brown. I am the mother of two children. I am from a family of 7 children, 2 parents. My dad died in 2019. My eldest sister, who was my main support, I have others, accountability partners, but she had a stroke. Our family has stroke history, and she had a stroke in 2020 and passed away within a day. So we're, in the family, we are still dealing with that. I went to a grief group, and one of the things that is a testimony of, or a testament to how you can live well with bipolar disorder. When my sister passed away, it didn't take me out. I didn't have a manic episode. I have bipolar 1 disorder, which is classic up, down, up, down. It didn't take me out. I am still doing well. When my husband died, and we'll talk about this later, when my husband died, when my children were 6 months old and 19 months old, it also didn't take me out because I have a plan. My husband's name was Oscar William Brown Jr. He was a preacher and a motivational speaker, and he used to say all the time that you need to plan your work and work your plan. So one of the things I talk about often to people is having a plan that you live by, because I am proof that you can live well with a severe mental illness.
Yes, yes, you definitely are. So let's get right into it. So, what happened? How did your diagnosis come about? And what were some of the like behaviors that your family was seeing that led to your diagnosis?
Okay. I was diagnosed with bipolar disorder officially in 1980 at the age of 21. I wasn't with my family, I was away at college. So I was committed to a facility. My dad came to try to take me home so that I could be treated in Baltimore. I went to school in Connecticut, and the doctor said, no, she is a danger to herself and others, and you cannot take her on a train and take her back home, which was horrifying for my father. Um, I ended up in the Connecticut Valley Hospital, which used to be called the Connecticut Valley Hospital for the criminally insane or something on that
Mm,
order. And I was there for 15 days while they brought me down from the mania. And once I was brought down from the mania, I was released from the hospital. It was very interesting that there was a woman at the hospital who worked there, and she wasn't a clinician. And she said to me, maybe the day I left or the day before, she said, "I don't you want you to ever come here again. I want you to be okay." And what she didn't understand was that it was an illness. Um, what happened to me also that first hospitalization, because I was 21, I could make my own decision. So they offered me medicine and I refused to take it. So when I left, they prescribed a multivitamin, and if I had had someone to really understand what was going on, I would have done something different, but I didn't. And I will interject at this point that I actually have a family history of bipolar disorder, which used to be called manic depression.
mhm,
So in my maternal family, my maternal grandmother had manic depression.
mhm.
My maternal great uncle, who was her brother, also had manic depression. And so, what would happen back then, there was no medicine. They would just hospitalize you until they could bring you down. And then they would send you back out. And then you would build your life back. And then it would crash again. And it would be a cycle.
Oh, wow. Wow. So, what was it that brought you into the hospital? What was the mania like?
The mania was I was psychotic. I didn't understand what was happening with myself. When my dad came to the hospital, I told him that I had found the clean, well lighted place that Ernest Hemingway talks about. And another thing was that I had strength. Like I could pick up things that I never should have been able to pick up. And it was and I was like, this is so cool. I can pick this chair up. I can pick this table up. And I was just everywhere in my mind. Physically, I was good. I was a college student. Everything was good physically, but it wasn't good mentally. Now, the first um, mental health challenges that I had depression my senior year in high school at 16.
Mm,
And a lot of times for women who have bipolar 1 disorder, we have depression before we have any kind of mania. So I had depression. And then I had another depression in, oh gosh, my first year of college. So I went to my first semester and I came home. And then it's always important for me to add my mom had experienced depression when I was a child,
mm,
and she was a teacher. She had depression. She went to the Phipps Clinic at Hopkins. She was given medication. Everything worked out. She was fine. So for me, depression didn't scare me because when I got to be 16 and 17, I saw depression as something that was manageable. And my daughter said to me, she said, Mommy, that's very interesting because we don't hear a lot of people say that because they didn't have that background experience with their mom. So, because of that, I just felt like, okay, I'm depressed. The first time I went and stayed with my aunt for a little bit when I was depressed at college, I just left for a semester and I saw all of this as an anomaly. It's like, okay, this depression is here. This is not going to be like my life. Then in 1982, 80, no, not 1982, in 1980, early 1980, I went on this fast and it was, for church. And so you fast all day, you eat at night. And I didn't know anything about brain chemistry. So for me, what happened, Letitia, was it knocked my brain chemistry off.
Mm.
So, I thought I was about to marry this man at church that I wasn't about to marry this man at church. He had just invited me and my girlfriend over for dinner because he cooked really well. So that was what that was. It wasn't so it's like what was happening to me was I was believing things that were going on in my head that were not true. Now that time in this was late February, early March of 1980. My closest friend, Penny, and my friend Bill, who had had a mental health crisis before, not bipolar, I think it was depression,
Mhm.
they walked me through it. And I didn't end up in a hospital or anything. Then in 1981, what I started the story with, that was when I was diagnosed. And, my whole everything was just out of whack as far as what I was thinking and moving at hyper speeds and
Mhm.
thinking that I'm getting all this done when I'm not getting anything done. And what it also does is scare the people that are watching you. You're
Mm.
like, oh my goodness, what is going on? So I ended up in the hospital then. I got out of the hospital. I did another time of being at home. And I took another semester off from school. And the first time when I came back in 19 when I came back in 1980, I had to see the school psychiatrist and the school psychologist. I mean, the school psychologist said, I was okay to come back to school. And then in 81, that was when I ended up um, the in 81 was when I ended up in the facility. I took another semester off from school and then came back still thinking this is an anomaly. This is not
Mhm.
anything that's going to happen to me. I didn't know my grandmother's whole background at that time. She had had an episode at our home when I was a child. And some kind of way, when I watched that, it looked crazy to me, but somewhere within me, I thought that that was going to be me. Somewhere within me, I don't know how, but I actually thought, hmm, this is something that really could be me. It was like when we went to see her at the hospital with my family, everybody else, my sisters, my parents, they were at a hospital visit. I was at an insane asylum and thinking, oh my goodness, this could be me. And then by the time I was in, I don't know, middle school, I said to my oldest sister, Val, and that's my sister that passed away, who
Mhm.
was my main accountability partner. I said to her, I said, Val, because I would have um, thoughts that rushed in my head, like I'd had racing thoughts.
Mhm.
And I said to her, I said, Val, I think I might be crazy. And what Val said to me sustained me for years. She looked at me and she was only 4 years older than me. So if I was in eighth grade, she was in 12th grade. And she looked at me and she said, Sharita, everybody's crazy.
Mhm.
And just that helped me. It was like, okay, if everybody's crazy, this is not unusual because my sister, who I trust, has told me everybody's crazy. It's not just you, baby. It's the world. Earth, Wind, and Fire said that's the way of the world. So so that was that. And I was able to make it through and to go to college. And I went to private school. Then I went to Wesleyan, which is a fantastic college in Connecticut. So life was going well. And the most important thing to me, Letitia, was that I was going through life not pretty, not whatever other people were going through life with. I was like, I'm going through life smart. So it doesn't matter if I'm the cutest, if I'm the wittiest, if I'm the funniest, I am smart. And it's like, okay, I'm fine because other people might have other things that work for them. What works for me is smart. So when I had the episode in 1982, um, the psychologist at school, Philippa Coughlin, did not want what happened to me in 81 to happen again. So she had two of my closest friends take me home by train. And all while this is going on, I'm thinking that I'm going to get married to one of the brothers. No, this is a different brother at my church. Marriage is a big thing for me. So I'm getting married, and for some reason, it's about to be break from school, and he's sending me home on the train. Of course, later I found out from my girlfriend Penny and my girlfriend Cheryl that wasn't what was happening. What was happening was Dr. Coughlin decided, she came to my apartment and she was like, we're not going to let what happened before happen to her again. So what we're going to do is have the two of you take her by train, which is a 6-hour train ride, to her family. So I'm on the train and I had this picture of myself that I covered over in green marker. And I was like, oh, doesn't this look better now? Because, oh, I've made it look better. And they
Wow.
wouldn't let me get up. And I couldn't understand, except to go to the bathroom. They wouldn't let me get up. One of them sat next to me, and the other one sat across the aisle next to me. And I remember being on the train, and there were these Boy Scouts. I don't know what they were there for. And I was like, I really need to go talk to these Boy Scouts. I think they would like to talk to me. I think that this would be a great conversation. I can find out why they're there, where they're going, da, da, da. And of course, everything is speeding up as my tone, everything is speeding up. And they wouldn't let me go. Then I don't drink. My girlfriend Penny was like, what do you want from the food car? So she went and got me a sandwich, and I said, I want a mixed drink. So she came back with orange juice and Sprite and mixed it in a cup and said, this is your mixed drink. So that was my mixed drink. And when I got to back to Baltimore to the train station, what I wondered in retrospect, not then, was Cheryl and Penny didn't have any luggage. They just had my luggage. That was all they had. And when we got to the train station, these are good friends of mine. So they told me later, my mom was there with my uncle. And usually when I came home from school, I just got in a train. I didn't expect them, not a train. When I got off the train, I just got a cab and went home. So they were there, and I knew later that it was really a crisis because my girlfriends, who had both been to my home and knew my mom, they said she barely spoke to them. It was like she kind of whisked me away. And each of them later both told that story. And the story was so horrifying for Cheryl. Cheryl didn't even remember that Penny was there.
Wow.
Just remembered that she was there because we are talking about people, thank God for friends, who have never experienced really watching a mental health crisis. Penny had watched before when I was in Connecticut in the hospital. Cheryl was actually away in Japan. So she had never seen it. So when she was coming this time, this was her first time actually witnessing this. So it was, it was very difficult for them. And then when I got home, my parents, they could have taken me to the hospital sooner. They didn't. They were afraid. They didn't know what to do. I heard them talking about it in their room. What are we going to do? So they took me to a therapist. And you have to understand that this is 1982. So the therapist that they took me to said, given her history, I had been having depression since um, 1976. This was 2082. And he said, well, given her history of these ups and downs, he said this to me and my mom and dad, you are probably looking at a daughter who will eventually need a custodian or
Mm,
caregiver, because every time this goes on, you're taking a brain hit. So she's taking these brain hits, and this is probably going to get worse rather than better. Now, the thing that was horrible with this was, I have to say that it was 1982. So I have a girlfriend who is a psychologist, and she said, no psychologist worth their salt, here in the 2000s would say that to a family, even if they thought it, because the truth of the matter is, Latesha, as you know, as I didn't know that then, is that bipolar disorder is treatable. So back then, what happened was I thought, oh my goodness, my life is over. I'm not, and the thing that was crazy with it was that I thought, I'm no longer smart.
mm,
A mood disorder, and I was telling somebody this recently. I said, a mood disorder has nothing to do with your mentality.
right.
But because nobody knew that I thought that I was no longer smart, nobody could correct it because I didn't say it. It was something that lived inside my head. So, because it was living inside my head, nobody could say, sweetie, this is a mood disorder. We can deal with this, the mental part, the emotional part, but this doesn't have to do with being smart. And until I wrote the book in 2015, and 2013 when I started it to 2015, I still thought of my period at college as the period of time when I wasn't smart. I
Mm,
went to grad school later, which I wasn't supposed to do. So I'll tell you what the psychologist said. He said, "Don't look for her to finish college. Don't look
oh,
for it."
wow.
I was 2 classes short of graduating. Don't look for her to finish college. Don't look for anything beyond that. Don't look for marriage. Don't look for her having kids. Just don't look for that, because but it was 1982 and people have grown since then. And even if he thought that, he should have kept that to himself. You should not have told us that. And now, because, and I'm not mad at him, because he could only share with me what he knew.
Right.
He couldn't share with me what he didn't know. We get people are like, well, didn't you get mad at this person for this? Didn't you get mad at the religious community? We'll talk about that. The religious community for this. And the reason I'm not mad at anybody and I'm grateful that I'm well is because people that were saying these things, they didn't know.
Right.
They
Right.
just they just didn't know. And I see on the screen the DSM in 1980. The DSM is the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual that
Mm,
is used to find out mental health challenges and what constitutes a mental health challenge. So in
It's a big,
1980,
big book too. And
it's
I
a
would
big,
conscious
thick book.
people like,
And I was that lady because I was an intellectual. I was that lady that studied the DSM-4, and now there's a DSM-5. And I studied, when I was writing my book, I actually opened the DSM-5 to look and see which of these categories was I fitting into, and I was fitting into many.
oh wow. Yeah, that's what I was saying. I would conscious people to not read that
I
unless
was
you're really strong, because I have the DSM-4. I had to take that. I had a college course that I had to take when I thought I was going to go. This is when I was in my hypomania and I was going to
uh-huh,
be a school psychologist, either school counselor or school psychologist, and we had to get the DSM-4. And let me tell you,
uh-huh.
if you go through that DSM-4, you think you are every one of those one of those diagnoses. Like, I'm like, oh my gosh, I got this, I got this, I got that. It's like, okay, Latesha, no, you're not.
Now, for me, one of the things that was fortunate for me was that my Christianity saved me from what people don't understand is when you have bipolar. One of the it's not one of the things that people do. One of the symptoms, that's the word. One of the symptoms of bipolar disorder is hypersexuality. And I really believe that the only thing that saved me from hypersexuality and multiple partners and all of that was that I was in the church. And being in the church, actually, I will say, saved me from that, because I think without where I was as far as studying my Bible and, salvation and having the Spirit of God, I really believe that I would have been all the way out there, and so it's not saying anything about people who are all the way out there, because that is an actual symptom.
Mhm.
And that's one of the symptoms that people don't talk about. It's like,
Yeah,
oh,
it's a shame. It's a stigma.
oh, yeah,
Mhm.
oh, he's a hoe. Oh, she's a hoe.
Mhm.
No, 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 they're not. They are dealing with something in their brain that is speaking to their body, that is saying, I need to have multiple partners. I need to have all this sex. And the reason it is dangerous is that you can end up with a horrible disease
Mhm.
because of what you're doing, because you're doing it um, without without any thought for your life.
Right.
What, I can't think of her name right now. She's the mother of Black Hollywood. What is her name?
Oh, Jennifer, is it Jennifer Lewis?
Jennifer Lewis. In her book, she writes with her bipolar that she had hypersexuality, and she explains very clearly what that was. And she went to like uh a doctor, but not, like a Western medicine, an Eastern medicine doctor, not a Western medicine, but an Eastern medicine woman who was like an acupuncturist, or I don't remember exactly. And the woman, in touching her body and doing what she was doing, she said to her, she said, "You are having too many sexual partners." She's like, "What? How do you know this?" But in Eastern medicine, like I do acupuncture, in Eastern medicine, when they feel your body and the different zones, they can tell. And so that was what happened, that when the woman was feeling her zones, she was like, "You have to stop this. This is not healthy for your body." And, we have to understand that it's our body, and we have to take care of our body. And we have to also understand that it's an illness.
Yeah.
If I had pancreatitis, you would say, "Oh my goodness, Sharita, you have an illness." If I had cancer, "Oh my goodness, Sharita, you have an illness. What can I do if I broke my arm in 3 places? Oh my goodness, can I sign your cast? Can I drive you somewhere? Because it's your right arm and you can't drive yourself." And that is why I am so proud of you for doing the Chrysalis podcast, because what this gives people an opportunity to understand is that what is happening here is an illness.
Mm-hmm.
And we have to destigmatize this, because we have to let people know that me having bipolar, you having a bipolar diagnosis, is no different from a cancer diagnosis. It's no different from a diagnosis of diabetes. It's just no different. It's the same thing. And the reason I wrote the book was that I wanted people to understand that. I'm going to hold the book up in front of me. This is Defying the Verdict, My Bipolar Life. And the reason I'm a very, very private person. And one of my girlfriends and I, we laugh about this. Like, Charita wrote a book about a memoir, because someone actually, when they knew I was writing a book, she works at, she's one of the professors at, oh gosh, I'm going to say Cornell. I could have the wrong school right now. But what she does nonfiction, and she said to me, her name is Liz Harris, and she said you might want to fictionalize it, because when I talked to her in 2013, I hadn't written it. I just had like an outline of what I wanted to do, and I thought about making it an allegory. I thought of all kinds of things that I could do, and I realized as I prayed about it that I didn't need to fictionalize it, because people need it. When you fictionalize something, people don't know what's the truth, what's not the
Right.
truth, what did you add, what didn't you add.
Right.
So for me, my book is what my daughter would call my truth. It's the way I experienced it, because one of my siblings, she was like, "Sharita, this isn't all true." And I'm like, "Well, you would have to write your own book, because this is the way I saw what was happening." So when I'm writing what I write, Lucille Clifton said they want me to tell my story, but then I can't think of the direct quote. They want me to tell my story, but then I keep on remembering to tell their story, but then I keep on remembering mine. So when the wonderful thing about memoir is that it is that person's memories of what happened, and other people might, because we all have a different prism. So I was one of 5 sisters. We lived in the same home, but each of us would tell the story a little differently, because we process it through who we are. So if you have 4 girlfriends who all go to the same thing and do the same, like, let's say, see the same play, everybody is going to come away with what connected most with them. Everybody's not going to have seen the same thing. It's like when people hear messages at church, everybody doesn't hear the same message. You hear what connects with
With
you
you. Right.
and what is most important to you. Like my friend might say, "Oh, did you hear da 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 da?" And I'd be like, "I didn't hear that." "Did you hear da 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 da?" And they're like, "Well, no." But that was what connected connected with our spirit. So in 1982, we're going forward.
Before you do that, I want to touch on something. First, I cannot believe we're already at the 30-minute mark. So this has been really good. So it went by fast, didn't it?
Yes, it did.
I wanted, before you go back to, you said something about hypersexuality. And I wanted to go back to that only because that is definitely a stigma that a lot of people don't want to talk about. And in one of my previous episodes before I started having guests, I talked about my experience dealing with hypersexuality.
Yes.
And you're right. People wanted to label me, call me, I was, like you said, a hoe and this, that, and the other. But what they didn't understand, like, it was when I was in those hypomanic or something, it depends on like what I was feeling. It just felt like in my mind and in my body, I just needed to be with a partner just to get away. I don't know what it is, but just to get away from, whatever I was feeling. I
Yes.
didn't have an emotional connection to anybody. It was
No.
just,
And that's what people don't understand, that it's not, and I saw your episode, that it's escapism. It's not, oh, I'm connected to these three different men. I'm not. And that's the way it is. And it's important that you were able to come to an understanding that that didn't say anything negative about you. It said, this is the way the illness is manifesting. And that's why we have to allow people to understand that bipolar disorder is an illness.
yeah.
It's not, oh, I'm just choosing to do this. I just decided I'm going to do. And then there's also, this is a little rabbit hole, people who have been sexually abused as children,
Trauma.
that who have suffered that trauma. You also find even people who don't have bipolar illness, they also sometimes end up having many partners, but it goes back to what that was. So if you go, you can have a therapeutic intervention with someone who understands, who can help them not to continue that behavior. So instead of us going, oh, she's just whatever, or oh, he's just whatever, we're not looking at what the person has gone through that has brought them to where they are. In Shakespeare, I think it's from The Tempest, it says past is prologue. And so what we had going on in our past affects what goes on in our future. And that's why therapy and therapeutic intervention is so important, because you have someone who has studied ways to help you get through, to look at your life and to look, some people just need a girlfriend or a friend to sift it through their hands. Others of us need therapeutic intervention.
Right. And it's so funny that you said that about, the trauma, because when I look back, I was sexually assaulted. Oh, I forgot what year, because my brain just kind of like blanks it out,
Yeah.
and
To keep you
brings out
safe.
details. Yeah. And
Mhm.
so before I was sexually assaulted, I do remember having, different partners, but not so close together. They'd be like months apart, like months, maybe
Right.
even a year apart. And then after this, because I was married when I was sexually assaulted, and that did something to my mind, because it was like it made me feel like it was my fault. And
Oh,
so after the sexual assault, that's when the hypersexuality got worse. And then,
right.
because I was married, and then I'm just going from one partner to another while I'm still married. And that actually what ended my marriage. And my ex-husband, we're good friends now, but he really, as a man, he couldn't understand that either. You know what I mean? Like, why you keep doing this? And I couldn't even explain why am I keep doing this. It's just something that was like, it was like after that sexual assault, it just triggered something. And it was just like, I didn't care anymore, because I never got therapy for it. I didn't even tell my ex-husband that I was assaulted until maybe like a month later, a month or two later. I didn't tell
Mhm.
anybody, And so, yeah, sexual trauma it definitely can, it definitely can add more to, and cause
Yeah.
the problem even more. But you were saying, because we got about 10 minutes left. So You were saying, I'm sorry. It was like, yeah, this is a great one.
No, you
Go.
go with what the segues are.
But before we go, I want to know, like, what before because you have overcame so much. You've overcome so much. What actually helps you right now to stay healthy?
What helps me right now? I told you about my husband saying, plan your work and work your plan? I have a plan. I went to 2.5 years of phenomenal um, pastoral counseling therapy from 1987 to 1989. My um, Elder Hickey was a pastor of a church, and he had gone through Loyola College's pastoral counseling program. So he knew exactly what he was doing. So it wasn't, sometimes preachers try, but they don't have the capacity. But I was with someone who had the capacity. So 2.5 years we did this. And actually at 2 years we were going to stop, but I got engaged. And I didn't think that was going to happen. I got engaged, and I told you about all my things had marriage in them. When I met somebody who wanted to marry me, I was terrified. I thought that was what I really wanted. I was terrified. But anyway, we continued the therapy. What I did, there's a woman who, a doctor, who came up with, I came up with my plan in from 87 to 89. She created her plan in the early 2000s. So one of the things that is wonderful about our two plans is that her plan basically mirrors my plan. And it's because if something works, it works. So this is what I do. I have a psychiatrist who prescribes medication. I take medication. I do therapy sometimes if I need it. Like for years, I didn't need therapy. But then when I became a caregiver for my two parents, I went into caregiver burnout. So I knew I needed a therapist. So I had a therapist. And recently, I've gotten a new therapist. So it's therapy as needed. I pray a lot. Everybody has what they do. For me, prayer works. People tell me it doesn't. I'm like, it doesn't work for you. It works for me. I meditate. People meditate different ways, mindfulness, different ways. I meditate on scripture. So I take a Bible verse, a passage of scripture, and I meditate on that scripture. The scripture that I gave you at the beginning, that's one of the scriptures that I meditate upon. And, those scripture helps me to make it through. Exercising is important. I tore my rotator cuff, so I haven't been doing a bunch of exercising, but exercising is important. Eating well, because you have to feed your brain. Eating well is important. There are, as I talked about, accountability partners, people that are with you watching your health. So my sister Val was watching my health. My daughters, and more so my daughter Anita, watches my health. Fortunately, when Valerie died suddenly, it wasn't that I don't have anybody else who is watching my health. So I have some people that are just watching to make sure, that I'm okay. Like, are you doing okay, etc. As far as mental health. And then there are two things that just seem small, but they're big, is to pause, just pause and take a breath, just because it quiets your insides, quiets your brain, quiets your spirit. And then there's something that it's a Native American saying that there are 4 rooms, that we all have 4 rooms. We have a mental, an emotional, a spiritual, and a physical. And that we should go into each of those rooms every day, even if we're only going in to air them out, so that we're visiting all of those rooms every day. Since my sister passed away, I'm not going to say I get it all right every day. I said I tore my rotator cuff. The exercising is not what it should be. I My sister passed away. My go-to stress food is cheese. I eat a bunch of cheese, and I'm like, Sharita, you got to cut back on this cheese. My daughters went to the candy exhibit in Philadelphia, and who would have known they brought back pixie sticks? Those sugar sticks that
Yes,
you. Oh my goodness. My 8-year-old niece who went, she was like, Aunt Rita, you have to stop eating those sugar sticks. She said, those are sugar sticks. You can't just eat that. So I've cut back because they brought a lot of them back home. And the other day I had like 4 pixie sticks. I just cutting them open, throwing them down my throat and feeling better. Having that, it's not going to kill me to have a few pixie sticks.
right, right. I love that. We got to do those things that make us happy too. We got to do those things that no matter how small it is.
Yeah.
So this has been an amazing, when you come back, because I know you were going to touch on it about the religious community, and that lately that has been a hot topic when it relates to mental health. So we're going to have to bring you back.
Yay.
Bring you back and talk about the religious community, because I've also had my own experiences where dealing with I'm of the same faith as you. Most people don't know, but I am of the same faith, and the religious community can really try your faith. And so
and they're growing. People are growing, and that's why we tell our stories to the religious community. I had someone who read my book and they were like, oh my goodness, you went through that? Do you still go to that church? But people have to be taught.
Yes.
You have to be taught. You have to open your mind to do something different.
All right.
And I've watched you just really grow and really, you found a place as far as church that is a place that builds you up in your spirit. And, as I talked about the 4 rooms, that spiritual room is so important. And, it's important when it comes to relationships to know if we're in a place that is not building us up, that we have to say goodbye to.
Right, right. Well, this has been an amazing interview. Like I said, definitely going to call and bring you back so we can talk about, faith and mental health. I always tell people that I pray, I meditate, and I take my medicine.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Yes.
So yeah, I definitely I can't wait to have that discussion with you, that conversation with you. So once again, this has been our wonderful guest, Miss Charita Brown. She's like my second mom, guys. I love her dearly. Check out her book, My Bipolar Life: Defying the Odds. It wasn't as like an Amazon winner.
What is happening with the book now? The book is going out of print. So you can still buy it on Kindle. You can go on my website. You can also send me a DM if you would like a signed copy of the book, and I'll make sure that you get one.
Okay, this is excellent. Excellent. Guys, you know what I'm going to say. Make sure you like and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Get us up. Let me tell you something. I'm not asking you guys to like because I just want the likes. I want this information to get out to people, get out into the world so that we can fight the stigma against mental illness. And to do that, you got to hit that like and subscribe so that more people can watch our videos. Okay. So make sure you like and subscribe on our YouTube channel. Make sure you follow us on Instagram at Inside the Chrysalis Podcast. And I think if you want to share your story with us, be sure, or featured on our show, be sure to send your inquiries to Inside the Chrysalis podcast at gmail.com. I'm so excited. This was a great, great interview. Thank you so much, Miss Charita, for being here. I love you, love you, love you, love you so much. All right, guys. This has been Inside the Chrysalis with Latesha Higgs. All right. Have a good day, everyone.